to turn it on. There's a little bouton. Hey everybody.
Hi.
My name is Tatiana Maslany, and I have the pleasure of talking with Jay Duplass today, who is co-writer, producer, and lead actor of Excons.
That was so well done.
Thanks. I was like, back to those.
Very
trying to
proper.
think of exactly.
Your parents would be so proud.
I know, I'm a
you
good
said
student.
all the formal things.
Yeah.
You did it. Thanks, guys, for coming out to the opening night screening. It means a lot.
It's such a beautiful movie. The audience was like so with it the whole time, laughing. And,
oh, that's nice.
Yeah, it was just really beautiful. And I guess the first question I would have is because I know you don't do, you're selective about what you want to do. So what was it about this story or this character that drew you in?
I mean, the way that the movie started is Lynn Shelton was watching me in Transparent, and she just made it clear to me that she was going to make a movie with me in it. And I was like, okay, that sounds great. But it took a while, and once she got the idea, she pitched it. I mean, it was literally like a 40-second pitch where she was like, I see you as a guy coming out of prison pursuing his high school teacher. And I was like, yeah, I get it, let's do it.
Been there, done that.
Yeah. I mean, very far from my own personal experience, but it was the kind of idea that I could feel and understand, and we talked a little bit about how it's a very common thing, like a man in prison and a slightly older woman, and there's some deep connection / romance, a woman on the outside happening. That was a vague beginning, but obviously once we got into this story, it just took off and became very specifically its own.
And was that something you knew about before, or was it something that you researched when you were starting to get into?
I mean, we had both talked about how we were, I don't know, I guess we're both like obsessive students of the human condition, and we had both like noticed that phenomenon, and we were like, yeah, I've thought a lot about it. I've thought a lot about what that is and what would happen if they come out, and can you form a relationship, and what that's like. And then once I just started doing research about what it is like to be in prison for 10 or 20 years, what it is like to try to assimilate to society, and most specifically what it's like to go in before the technology explosion and then come out after. I mean, that was just the most fascinating stuff. These guys that I would talk to, they're like, basically all your rights are taken away. Society does not want to rehabilitate you and re-accept you. And what doubles down on all this is you come out of prison and it looks like every fucking person is in the CIA because everyone's got an earpiece in or looking down. I mean, it's just like, imagine the paranoia you already have and then just like tripling it, because no one looks at anyone in the face anymore.
Right, and total isolation then, even within the world.
Total isolation, yeah.
There were certain aspects of it too, like him living in the garage or like putting himself into this kind of confined space. Was that stuff that you discovered in the research?
Almost all of these guys end up sort of making a small prison for themselves so that they can feel comfortable. I think over the years they can re-assimilate if everything goes really well. I mean, it was very, the 13th had come out around that time, and we were just, as we were researching, we were just realizing, like, wow, how important this is, and that this could be an empathy engine at this time. And Trump also got elected while we were shooting the movie, and we were shooting it in Trump country. It was just all this stuff going on. I mean, it was very overwhelming emotionally, but it was the little signs for the universe where it was like, you're doing the right thing, you're doing it right, keep going, there's something that needs to be said here, and we're discovering it as we go.
So was there any shift that happened because of the election going the way it did? Did any storyline change or any kind of, because I don't know what the process was between you and Lynn in terms of writing, but I know you work with improv a lot, and I wondered if any of that kind of came into it.
I'm trying to think if anything specific came into it. the way that the script happened is Lynn wrote a very quick draft, like early, and Lynn and I have both worked in very improvised ways where we've made movies off of outlines before, and we thought this movie just made sense to us and maybe we would go that way. But after she wrote the first draft, and every step of the way we were like, oh, this is great, this is deep, and also we cannot fuck this up, and we have to keep going deeper and deeper, and we ended up writing, a 120-page script, which neither of us have ever done. It's the longest movie either of us have ever made. We've been joking about how we made a real fucking grown-up movie with this one. And the press is weirdly saying the same thing too. It's just like, wow, they're all grown up. But yeah, it was a long process. And to answer your question, we were rewriting on set and rewriting the night before. I think I was driving Lynn absolutely nuts. Because as a director, she's way busier than I am as an actor. So I was just like constantly rewriting. But luckily, she liked most of what I was constantly. Because also we have Edie Falco. Oh my God, you guys! Oh my God! Weirdly, she works incredibly similar to the way that Lynn and I and you do. Tat and I are in a movie together that will be premiering in the next year or so. And just very open, doesn't like to talk it that much, like really wildly open to doing a first take where we have no fucking idea what's going to happen.
I wondered if there was rehearsal.
No rehearsal
because
at all.
The history that you had all built between every character, every dynamic was so deep, and you could feel it, even though you had this big gap between of 20 years.
Yes,
you knew that these people knew each other intimately, or at least had an idea of who each other was.
Exactly. We had that history built in and baked in, and I mean, I would say probably a third of what you see on screen is a first take where we were letting all bets off and just sort of figuring out, just finding surprises, basically.
In terms of shooting it then, was it quite loose?
Yeah, it was pretty loose. But what we found is that the script was pretty good and that we kind of ended up coming back to the script in a lot of ways. But there were definitely some amazing things that happened. I mean, the last line of the movie is one that strikes me where... we had different endings that we were considering. We might just see each other from across the street. And then we were kind of coming to terms with the fact, because we were shooting in order in the way that we normally do and just trying to find the thing. We were coming to terms with the fact that we were shooting a fucking grown-up movie. And we didn't, in the end, we were let's not do a cute ending. There's unfinished business here between these two, and they just need to meet each other and figure it out. Mm-hmm. And it was weird in a certain way, but then we were no, this is real. And there's one particular line at the end where Edie says, maybe we could get to know each other as we are now. And I think about it a lot, because if you write that line in a script and you basically tell a studio head that that's going to be the ultimate line that ends a movie, let's get to know each other as we are now. Imagine that in black and white. They're just going to be snooze fest! But it was one of those things where, we had shot this whole movie. My primary relationship to Edie was in the context of this. And it was the thing. It was the thing. And it made a lot of sense. And we were yeah, we're going to do it. We're just going to do the real thing that makes sense. It's not, this is a lot of semantics in terms of craft and stuff. But you know what I'm talking about? Where you're just could this be, the end of the movie? And we're yeah, that is it, because it's true.
It doesn't feel like you shy away from anything that's not conventionally maybe appropriate or morally kind of ambiguous, and all of the characters seem to live in that space. Was there ever a reticence to going into, say, the relationship that you have with Edie plays in these weird places of
yeah, we're in a danger zone with Edie and with her daughter, and she's in a danger zone. It's hard walking into a movie kind of saying that she's not that great of a mom. That's not okay to say in America, that a woman is not a great mom. It's just burn her at the stake, you know what I mean? Yeah. And I think that is one thing that Lynn and I were talking about a lot, especially with Edie's character in particular. I have to give it to Lynn, because it's very hard to do a two-hander that's like very, very even. We did the same thing, and it's like it's interesting and it's tricky because it's not the common. Like, clearly when Chris gets out of jail and he's going to track her down and he's trying to assimilate into society, it's a very easy story to, like, grab a hold of, you know? And that's what drives the story in the beginning. And then the movie starts to kind of shift towards Edie, where we're dealing with, like, her in her own prison of sorts. And I think the question that Lynn and I were, like, asking ourselves is, does a mom and a working mom and wife deserve a chance to take a risk to be happy in America? And I think the answer that we came up with is fuck no. Culturally, that is what we are being told, you know? And so we were trying to challenge that and to do it with empathy as much as possible, and for her to try her best with Tom, but also still kind of have fucked it up with her daughter a little bit. We were definitely, you know, it's just like threading needles here and there. It's like, oh God, is that too far? But we did takes where we'd go further or we wouldn't go as far, you know?
I really appreciated that it ended on this note of her kind of lack of apology for her happiness and for the big question mark of what was coming up. Well done, dude.
Bro.
Nice movie, bro.
Nice.
I feel
cool
like...
Q&A, bro.
Cool Q&A, bro. Does anybody have any questions for Jay? Yeah.
You did a really amazing job in the first half of that movie of just trusting that the viewer is going to pick up what's going on, what the dynamic is, without really ever being like overt about it. It was
fantastic
awesome.
Question.
Yeah. So, well, I wanted to know, like, was that in the script or did you discover that in post and then like strip it away? I was just curious what.
We both hate flashbacks, and we both decided that Lynn, more aggressively than me, wanted the movie to be a mystery that you were slowly uncovering, because she did not want to, I mean, neither of us wanted to explain anything, but the release of information was like insanely, we were very careful about it, and we shot options and we tested on people in editorial, and we were like, okay, this is when they're ready to hear this, and I know we're waiting this long, but like they're mad at us right now, and it's not in a good way. You know, we need to release this information earlier. So, I mean, it all gets released bit by bit. Basically, I think the last piece is like very late in the movie when Ben Schwartz, who plays my brother, kind of like really fully capitulates what his situation was in relationship to the crime and the time served.
Yeah, awesome job.
Thanks, man.
Go ahead.
I wanted to know the process that you had in developing your character, and you know, there were so many beautiful moments where even when you were sad, you were so loving and happy for the other characters. So it was so moving. And also, which was the most challenging scene that you worked on?
Thanks. She asked, what? She said I'm an awesome actor, and how do I do it?
How you cry so much?
Cool question, bro. She was asking about how I was like sort of feeling the hopefulness in the midst of like the terror and the sadness. I did a ton of research. I started with documentaries and then just moved to talking to people. And there was one guy in particular who's insanely close to Chris in terms of how he was incarcerated, over-sentenced. He basically was involved in a PETA action that went bad. Something burned down. No one was killed, but he was like charged as a terrorist and made an example of, because it was like they felt like PETA was like getting out of hand. It's really intense. Very like middle class kid who went to prison for 15 years. And it was, I mean, basically what I learned in talking to him and a lot of guys is kind of what empowered me to play it that way, but to do it, because I had a lot of trepidation. I'm the least hard person that I know. Like, I am not a hardened criminal. And we've seen a lot of movies where dudes come out and they're pissed off and they're hard, and I'm sure that happens. But for me, all of the people that I talked to, what struck me the most was like tremendous vulnerability. I mean, tremendous fear, that feeling that we talk about how I just got out, I've given up all my freedom, I feel like someone's just gonna come get me. and put me back in, and there's like nothing I can do about it. I mean, I'm gonna tear up thinking about it. And also, like, can someone love me? Who will accept me in this world? And am I too fucked up to be with anyone? And at the same time, the fucking euphoria of freedom after so many years of incarceration, of just like, the guy told me he just never got one full night's sleep because there's all this screaming and yelling and banging all night. People are crazy in there. So it's not only like what infused the way that I play it, but it kind of like empowered me to do it, because like I can do emotionally crushed and hopeful because that's my baseline, guys. So I was like, how do you cry so much? I'm just like, I'm trying not to cry on a daily basis. Crying is fucking baseline. So I don't know. It was like, that's what got me to the point where I was like, yeah, I can do this. And the guys that I talked to, I mean, even once, like one guy who had done a violent thing, everyone is dying on the inside. We're all crushed, and we're all trying to figure out how to do this life. And these guys are in a much more heightened state of that, and that's just what I was trying to play. Also, I have a huge crush on Edie Falco, so it was very easy to just chase her down repeatedly.
Great chemistry.
Yeah, we had done a movie together before called Landline, and I just had been hanging out with her, and I was like, guys, I mean, she's a unicorn. She can do anything. She doesn't have any face work. She's a real lady who is like willing to be a dowdy, middle-aged mom in rural Washington. Never questioned it for a second. Had no trailers. We were shooting out of a VFW in poor rural Washington, and she was just sitting at a rusty table knitting in between takes and having the time of her life. I mean, somebody marry this lady or whatever. I mean, she's just a unicorn. We were the luckiest ever.
Was she always the person that you had in mind for that role?
Lynn had someone else in mind, and when we were writing the movie, I shot Landline, and I met Edie, and I was like, oh my God, Lynn, oh God, I can't deal if it's not Edie because this person is here. And I mean, the woman that we had was amazing as well, but she ended up dropping out. And Edie slotted it in a way that, I mean, it's just, we never could have, the movie just wouldn't be what it is without her.
My question is, I'm like, I'm a writer, she's not, and how do you gain that trust with, because I mean, I know you guys co-wrote it, you and Lynn, but how do you gain the trust of like a director, or to have them interpret your work?
How do you gain the trust of a director to interpret your screenplay?
Yeah. Or how do you
It's a nightmare, but not with Lynn, because she's Lynn Shelton, and I know her really well, and we make similar movies. But it was hard. I mean, it was hard with me and Lynn. Like I think we both had a lot of stakes in this movie, and it meant a lot to us, and we were like kind of grappling with each other a lot of the way. But I never inherently didn't trust her. I think being a screenwriter is really, really hard. And I think what the hardest part about it that I don't think we have really edified in our minds is that a screenplay is like a third or a half of a piece of art. And it's very hard to say that and to hear it. But I think we think that screenplays are full pieces of art, and they're not. And I have been through enough movies to know that a great screenplay can be a terrible movie, and a shitty screenplay that's a good idea can be a great movie. And so just keeping that in mind, I think it's just important, and I think it's important to be writing many screenplays. You like write the screenplay that you think is your dream, and then have an affair on that screenplay with another screenplay, and that affair screenplay is definitely the better screenplay.
That was a great movie.
Thanks, man.
I'm interested in how you came up with the artwork that the daughter.
Oh, the artwork is a great idea and an example of improvisation, and just like, you know, I think what Lynn and I most have in common, I mean, we have so much in common as filmmakers, but one of the things that we have held ourselves to is you don't ever watch what you're shooting and say, I think we got it. If you say that, you didn't get it. And originally, Hildy's artwork was, she was going into people's houses and rearranging their knickknacks and making funny things with them. And it was a really cool idea on the screenplay, but when we shot the first scene, it was like visually not there. It wasn't stunning, and it wasn't like, it didn't show promise, and it just didn't captivate. And luckily, I mean, Lynn has this whole family of filmmakers in Seattle, and our production designer, John Lavin, is an artist. He drew that picture of Edie that made him so embarrassed. He did like 5 levels of it from good to bad, and the good one was so good. And then we just kept going. We took the worst one, because when we looked at it, we busted out laughing. So we changed the whole scene, because we were like, it should be a pretty good work, because Chris has been working hard. No, we saw that, we were like, this is the funniest fucking thing we've ever seen. And Chris should just know that he's a piece of shit artist, but he like tries to slip it in and make her laugh. So he was like, let me try something, and he did that pink stuff, and we were like, God damn it, you're a genius. And it just makes sense, and it showed promise that she could go to University of Washington and maybe go to art school or just whatever, but it was also just beautiful. And then we started thinking about the tying up of the furniture and dropping little breadcrumbs. And then once we figured out that the trauma of the furniture would happen to Ted, we were just like, yes!
So serious about it?
Yeah.
There's
So
3
dead.
chairs
The way he
stacked
played that, he improvised that phone call with the police. The whole scene was just going to be me and him looking at it, and then he just kept going and was calling the police. And I was laughing so fucking hard at him and at the genius of that idea, but it was happening to me the first time, and Lynn was just shooting it. It was so great. It's awesome.
First of all, there was wonderful restraint I felt between all the lead actors, and I just wondered
Thanks.
if that was a product, Lynn's influence, or a product of how you all work, because I work myself, seeing how other people work, and I recognized it, and it was so effective and wonderful to see.
Thank you.
Did you have any discussions about that, or did you just luck out that everyone worked very similarly?
I think when all the performances in a movie are really good, it's because you have a great director. That's generally what I've observed. Because you're always, even when you're dealing with day players and they don't really know the tone, and it's really up to the director, and like every person that shows up on screen, it just is wet in Washington, basically. So I think it is Lynn. We didn't do a lot of overt talking. I think everyone coming to the movie, knowing Lynn and knowing me and what we're into and what we do, they knew what they were in for and they read the script. But Lynn is absolutely in charge of steering people and always saying less, doing less, just being and figuring out like what is the underlying mystery. Not even figuring out, just like allowing the underlying mystery to have its way in every scene.
I have a silly question, and less silly question. The wig scene, when you pull out the wig.
The wigs.
Yeah, I was just wondering, like, did you just do that and like totally surprise her in that moment? Because you seemed genuinely surprised, and I was wondering if that was something you came up with.
The wigs were. That was one of Lynn's original visions for the movie, and we had to move it around so many times to get it in because it was great. You were asking if it surprised Edie. I did not show her my wig. I don't think she thought that I was going to be a member of ABBA. So I did get her. Yeah, I mean, we are definitely fucking with each other as much as possible making the movie. And I was super... I mean, when you make Edie Falco laugh, it's like it's pretty good, yeah.
And then just, you're obviously an awesome actor in Laemmle and Transparency, but I was just wondering, the thing that I think makes you so unique is your pacing is so unbelievably natural, and like specifically that scene where you're trying to print or something on the computer and you're just looking around for your brother and you're like,
Oh,
I
yeah.
guess I gotta ask him or something. Like, it's such natural pacing. Like, what is he thinking to keep himself in that?
She's asking about the pacing of my acting.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I just go off of what I know I want to see when I'm a director, and what Jill Soloway says it best. What I had always said to my actors is like, your job is not to do anything. You just be real and just do it if you want to do it. Don't do it if you want to do it. It's my fucking job to get you to the end of this scene, and that creates a human pace and a human life. But I think Jill says it better, and I've stolen it from her since, and that is, we have all the time in the world, and we have all the money in the world. You just do your thing. And I think that's very important. I'm sure there are movies where you need to pace it up. I don't know if I like those movies. But that's what most actors hear at all times, is like, do it faster, right? It's like, just do it literally fucking twice as fast, And I think what I've always felt is that humans need to behave at their own pace, and that editing can be fast, and things can be jump cut. The scenes can be shortened. But for these kinds of movies, and for the movies that I like, it has to be human pace, because, that we don't have a ton to offer here other than like real people and relationships. And if you don't believe that it's totally real, you've lost the whole movie, in my opinion. So that's always been my process. And luckily, because I've been working with Jill for so long, like, I have been on movies where people have encouraged me to like speed it up or whatever, and I'm just like, don't do it. I just don't do it, because I can't, I don't know. I mean, there's certain things you can speed up, but I don't know. I'm sure you go through it too, where you're just like.
That's like the most common direction
it is.
Get. It's just like, great, faster.
Yeah. I mean, like, and I have said things like this before. I mean, I'm getting older and I'm like getting bolder and stuff. I'm a pretty shy person in general, but like, I will say to people, like, the fact that you want to speed this up in a compulsive way right now is really starting to worry me about what's going on with this scene and why this needs to be so fast. They don't like to hear that.
I would say, first of all, Falco was amazing. I was almost feeling like I was I shouldn't have been there in the beginning when you guys were at the party, looking across each other at the room. That was beautiful and continued throughout. I'm curious, from the beginning of writing to finishing your edit, what was the span of time of that, and how long did it take to shoot it?
I think Lynn wrote the first draft in the early summer, and I think we were shooting by November. But we went nuts on that draft. Like, I went crazy, and trading drafts moves it even faster. We shot, I think, for 5 weeks, maybe 4.5 weeks. So it was like kind of a comfy shoot for a little indie like this. Did you have other questions?
I have a million, but I won't waste
I think Chris is very much his 18-year-old self still.
Mm-hmm.
Was that something, which was fantastic? I think it was so charming. But was that something that you found in the script, or through your research talking to these men, or when you got on set?
Yeah, Chris being sort of an 18-year-old still at 38 is something that I did find in these men, and something that I just felt was interesting in the script. And I feel that way, in my life. Like, I look in the mirror and I see gray hair and circles under my eyes, and I'm just like, what the fuck happened? I just graduated from high school. I'm still having dreams that I didn't go to math class. You too?
I wanted to know about the young actress who played Hildy.
Yeah, Kaitlyn Dever is the young actress who plays Hildy. She's an amazing, brilliant talent. She's one of those people that is such a chameleon that it's hard to identify her, but she was in Detroit. She was one of the girls in Detroit. You probably know her best as the girl who was cutting her wrist in Short Term 12. She was like the troubled, sort of white trash girl in that. I mean, she She's also in
Justified.
Justified, but no, wait, she's also known for what? She's in that too, but what's the TV show? She works a lot. The Last Man Standing is Tim Allen. She's a daughter in a Tim Allen TV show for like 5 years.
No.
Yeah. So she's got an interesting career. She's like doing hardcore cult indies, and then like the daughter in Tim Allen's show. She has no crossover whatsoever. This is her first chance to like bridge the gap, I think. Yeah.
She's one of those people who you watch and you're like, she was definitely not an actor. She's just that person.
Yeah.
And you just believe every second of her on screen.
Yeah, I know. It's like it's almost like Edie's daughter just came with her or something. She's unbelievable. And similarly with that human pace thing, that's what we love about her. She's just like a teenager, you know, just being a teenager and just like not trying to do anything, just being the thing. And I think what's so great, like to your point about like what Lynn cultivates is like to create a world where being real rises to the surface and it matters is just like, I just think it's so important. It's a way for us all to be seen, you know, and to not perform, you know, and to just have FaceTime and to honor people's stories. This is getting sappy and gross real fast.
Go into it.
Yeah.
Go deeper. How was that with an actor like Ben Schwartz, who is so quick? So like
the funniest bro on the planet.
Yeah.
I'm so proud of him. I think that last scene with him is just so well observed and just natural and sweet and beautiful and so much potential energy in there. He just was, you know, rapping and making jokes immediately after we cut. Like, teared up scene, and he's just like, it was fucking insane. He's a breath of fresh air. It was a hard shoot. You know, we were just standing out in the rain for a goddamn month. You know? It was a really hard shoot. But he, I think similarly, like, he knew what this was. Like, he's, you know, and Lynn and I were like, hey, bro, I think this is a drama. Like, hey, disclaimer. And in the end, I think lots of funny moments got in there. But I don't know. I think he was brilliant in it. I'm so proud of him. And I think we both had known him, and you just kind of know when somebody has it in them. They have that sadness, and as long as they're willing to go there, it can be actually really special when it's the first time you see it.
Mm-hmm. Who do you want? Who do you want, Jay?
I'll go here.
Okay.
And then, yeah.
I was wondering, what was your favorite scene to film, and then which one was your favorite to view on screen?
Favorite to film, favorite to view. Oh, probably favorite to film was the furniture scene with Ben. It was just so funny, so fun, so funny. Favorite to view. I don't know. It was well, I was very involved in the edit, and it was we were sort of rewriting the script in the edit, so it's like hard to say, but I will say that it made me laugh out loud when someone told me that they've never cried in a sex scene before. They've never cried watching a sex scene before. And I was like, all right, we did something.
Did you write for the environment specifically, or did you write the script and then found the environment? Because the environment and the location has such a distinct element and so informs the story.
Lynn is from Seattle, and we knew we were going to shoot in rural Washington, and she was constantly just sending me photos as I was writing, and we were definitely writing for that mood and that tone, and it was very informative to just get those photographs and to just do that. And I don't know, it was a definite, I don't know, the whole Trump thing happening at that time and being in that town, it was interesting because, you know, we were a crew with a lot of LGBTQ people, a lot of people of color, as we do in the film industry, and, you know, this is a super depressed, slightly methy, white town, you know what I mean? And it was really interesting because we did not experience any negativity. There was a lot of gun shops and ammo shops and shit like that, and there was a lot of celebrating when Trump won. But the feeling that, and it was really a lot for us to process, but like we were also emboldened to just keep making the empathy engine, you know? But there was this sort of feeling, and it gave me a perspective on it. It's just like, these people don't hate us. Like, they are working harder and harder and harder every year, and their life is, they're doing this with their work, and they're doing this with their life. And it feels helpless. It feels like all those people walking around in the background, just in the rain out there, those weren't extras. I mean, those are just people wandering around trying to figure out what the fuck to do, you know? And it was very, I mean, as much as it gave us empathy and made us realize that just like the desperation that is out there that does need to be addressed. So it was a pretty profound experience overall.
Thank you so much for a wonderful film.
Thanks.
I'm also an actor, and the whole movie completely. Kind of two-part question. What was your most challenging role in the part of the role as your character? What was the most rewarding scene that you found?
Most challenging, I think it was just trying to find that balance of hopefulness and just destroyedness, you know what I mean? And trying not to belabor anything too much, and just trying to find, and that was more in the script, I think, even than the acting, but just trying to find it, and like what it was, and trying to be as complicated as possible, while at the same time being a really immature kid, you know, who's just like somewhat irresponsibly pursuing a married person, you know, and her daughter currently. You know what I mean? And what was your second question? The most rewarding scene, probably the sex scene. It's weird to say, but it was just, that was the first take, and you know, we shot it, and it was one take, and I mean, just like being in Edie's presence and like experiencing that breakthrough with her, it's nerve-wracking to do it, and to not know what it's going to be like. And you know, like when we finished, like Lynn came out and she was just bawling, crying, and she was like, I think we have to do another one because it's the most important scene in the movie, I think, but we have it better than we'll ever get it again. So we just like did it again, but it was like, it was one of those moments where we were like, oh my God, this happened. And it was put inside of a camera, you know, because that's what we're going for in these movies, is like trying to capture some lightning of some real moment that happens, and you're trying to just like, hopefully the camera's rolling and it happens, and it did happen there, and we all kind of knew it and felt it, and it was a good feeling.
Were the I love yous scripted, or was that?
I don't even know. I don't even know.
She seemed like, same thing, seemed so surprised by you saying that to her.
Yeah,
and it
yeah.
Sort of
I think it was improvised. Oh, I'm getting chills. Yeah.
What is your experience as a producer? Has that changed?
As a producer, changed acting. I'm brand new to acting. I'm not brand new, but I'm about 5 years in. It's pretty new to me. I don't think it has changed my acting. All I know about acting is just being myself, or giving myself 100%, you know, because I'm not trained. I just have to do it and be it. And then if I do it and be it and it happens to me, then I know it's real, and then I just move on from there. I think I don't even know what I'm saying anymore, but I'm the person in my family where everybody's like, can you stop having all these feelings, because you're really making us fucking uncomfortable. And it's cool to be an actor because now I get paid for that shit. That's where I'm at right now. I don't fully understand it. I can't believe I even know Tatiana, much less did a whole movie with her.
I'm sorry, Jay
Oh, you are
Duplass.
fucking incredible.
No.
This is, you guys know. What?
mean, that's your baseline?
Yeah.
My family knows that crying is my baseline. They know it all too well.
Yeah, go ahead.
Me?
Yeah.
I noticed a lot of like parallels between this and Your Sister's Sister, and I was wondering if you or Lynn think of them as companion films.
Is this a companion film to Your Sister's Sister? I never thought of it at all, but someone did write that Lynn is like a master of like unusual love triangles, like me and Edie and her daughter. Pretty unusual. Yeah. So I think it's probably baked into what she naturally does. But I haven't seen that movie since it came out, so I can't. I remember it's really good, but yeah, I don't know.
I just have to know, you've been incarcerated for 20 years. Where's the first place you go? What's the first thing you eat?
Well, we did shoot a scene in the car, which we didn't use, of me chewing on fries and a burger. It was just like, I mean, we were, yeah, I think like when I was talking to the guys, it's like, it's not healthy food, it's not a special meal, it's like, it's usually like a burger grill. You know those charcoal grill burger places where it's like $4.99 and you get everything, and it's like hot as fuck when you get it. Like that's what, you know, that the meal that you had when you were young, and I think that's more of it. And so we went with that. And I think, do I eat a fry in that?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I just meant for you personally.
For me personally, it would be my mom's lasagna made with cottage cheese, which sounds gross, but is fucking top notch.
Have you screened the film for any ex-cons and get any feedback?
I don't. I have had a few ex-cons come up to me and say, good job. And that has been incredibly relieving. More than anything. My main guy, who knows that much of this is based on him, he hasn't seen it yet. I'm just like, I was like, should I take him to a film festival? I was like, no. That's too much. And so he knows it's happening and, you know, feels honored by it, but I think he'll watch it on VOD in his own time whenever he's like ready. I mean, I think it's going to be traumatic for him, but it's beautiful. And that friendship was really good for both of us. Like, it was nice for him to feel like there was some purpose being served. And he was very into the idea of creating an empathy engine towards like what this experience is a little bit like, and you know, helping people understand how hard. I mean, this isn't even a tenth of what it is, you know, to, yeah.
Prisoners can be so dehumanized in terms of how they're depicted, or
yeah, and post prison is somewhat the same. Like, I mean, halfway house is a place to pimp prostitutes, to sell drugs, to do everything, the worst things, and you have to be there. You're like, it's like worse than prison in a way, because you're just like an inch away from being reincarcerated, and you're like, people next to you are committing crimes, literally in the bed next to you, in a room. So you are complicit in crimes by being in a halfway house. It's fucking unbelievable when you think about it.
got some background visuals here to accompany that. Anybody else have a question?
Thank
All right,
you guys.
thanks so much.
Thank you guys so much.
Everybody for coming.
Tell your friends. Tell your friends to see this movie in movie theaters so that movies can live.